that we've got some room that we would, I think the board would agree to help with that, especially if we got some of these other answers so that we could show, I mean, the biggest people that I deal with are the fire department and the ambulance people, and both of those would really benefit from knowing exactly where a house was, especially in town. Out in the country, it's not quite so severe because they're not quite so close together. But if I can show the board, you know, how we can tie all this stuff together. So,
Chuck, would they locate, like the ambulance on call, would they locate that by GPS then, or would they have a screen that pulls up a picture of the house?
hopefully that's what my thought is, and as I visited with that gentleman that day downstairs, that's what he indicated, that our map would then would show up a picture just like he was showing.
So like,
But that's just in the comm center.
Yeah, that was
It's not in the
Okay.
ambulance.
Yeah,
Or it's not in the fire truck.
Yeah,
that's in your
That was a question that's kind of coming in my mind as well. Like
They
you'd have to have a laptop in the
Yeah,
ambulance or the
Yeah.
cruiser to bring it up.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just gonna have to go off,
Directions by the comm center.
but from the comm center, but he did say that, see, and that's another thing with, I mean, it'd be, just another thing, I don't know if the ambulance drivers have that much time on their hands, but
to wait for to be brought up.
Yeah,
have a
because
picture.
he said that we could have that, one of those little modules, we can get as many of them as we want, and no, they don't charge us extra. Is that what I understood? And he indicated that day that you could have one of those database modules connected to a laptop, in the ambulance.
But how would they get the signal?
They would, you have to type right in the address that the comm center gave them.
Oh, I'm with you, okay, so it'd be just...
They write in the address and it'd come up a picture of the house
with
that
you,
they were
yeah.
headed to.
One of the features of that was it shows 5 screens on the screen of the 4 different sides of the building that you're looking at, plus the aerial. So, you know, as they approach the building, they can decide where the easiest access is, where the entrances are to that house or whatever. So that all comes up on one screen, actually 5 screens.
But, you know, again, then, I don't know, you know, just physically, whether the ambulance people would have enough time to do all that, or if their time would be better spent driving, you know, or...
so maybe the comm center could be looking at it
They can tell, you know,
and
the
say,
town center have it
well,
on
say it
the
looks
picture.
like the entry door's on the south side instead of the front.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
you could do something like that, you know.
Which would be probably considerably less expensive if it were done here and not have to have laptops.
Yeah, of course, you know, and I don't know any idea what kind of laptops or anything would be required. You know, they're not that horrible, but
Yeah.
The ambulance driver is dependent upon, especially with our volunteers, sometimes he has a lot of time, he's waiting for because you can't move without two people.
yeah.
And I know a lot of times, I used to drive the ambulance, and I'd be sitting there waiting for the second one to show up.
Yeah.
It would have, I mean, no big time, but I mean,
But, no, you're right, though. I mean, like the ambulances in Odebolt, Shaler, and Lakeview, unless it just happened to be both of them were standing there, otherwise,
There is some time.
somebody's gonna have a
there's
few
gonna be some
minutes.
time, because
Because
nobody,
usually that one would get there and have the door open, the ambulance sitting out front and running by the
Yep.
time the second person gets there.
But even at that, on the way to
Yeah,
the location, both of them are sitting in the front seat, you know,
Yeah.
so the one that's not driving could
Yeah.
do that.
I could see a huge advantage for the Sac and Lakeview ambulance, only because they're usually out at least once a day. But you take the Shaler ambulance, the Odebolt ambulance, they don't get a whole lot of calls, so now you got a computer sitting there that's off,
yeah,
and now you gotta boot it up, now you gotta log into it, and by the time you do all that, you're there.
yeah,
You should be there.
yeah.
You know, and you can't leave them on all the time.
I think as I kind of listen to the ambulance calls and that, also the Sac City ambulance would really appreciate it. as the paramedics, they get called all over the county. So the people in Lakeview get to be familiar with their hometown. So if they head someplace for a call, they probably have a pretty good idea what house. But if they call for backup from the Sac City ambulance, now these guys might be headed to Lakeview and they might not have any clue.
Yeah, where Central or Madison.
Yeah, exactly, what kind of, what are we getting into, you know, or, and a long lane, a short lane.
Well, I think that applies to any mutual aid calls too for fire
Sure,
departments.
fire departments, absolutely.
You know, there's some advantage to that, like, well, we put a laptop in John Hatterman's car
Okay.
2 years ago at the cost of $6,000. By the time you get his laptop, his mount, his charging system, his printer,
Yeah, we would,
You know.
but I was, that sounds all like a lot of money.
Yeah.
it's an awful lot of money, but you know, that's one of those Panasonic tough books that
Yeah.
has a temperature control and,
Yeah, and that, you know, and I, like I said, I have no idea what the requirements
Yeah.
would be, you know, if you could get into something a little more realistic, and then,
Would you guys be available the 15th of April? Can you be?
let me check. I'm gone April 18th to the 25th, so definitely not then, but I don't know what I got before then.
as far as I know right now, I should be able to.
Well, we need to get this done before planting season.
I'll open April 15th.
That'd give you time to contact other assessors
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
see,
In fact, I called him this morning, but he
and
wasn't there.
see, you know, it's a tool for different departments are gonna, but it's the same tool. And what you can find out is if it's a tool you could use and if you could use it,
Well,
you know, what it's
as far as
safe.
I'm concerned, I could use the tool whether it takes a picture of the side of the building or if it just takes it straight down. I mean, I don't see where I'm gonna gain a lot of advantage by seeing the side of a building as maybe the emergency people, the sheriff's office, but just updating.
That's the big benefit.
Just updating is definitely necessary, and if it's cheaper to do the oblique than the straight down, I don't have a problem.
Well, yeah, and like, you know, with the cost of fuel, like when you guys drive around and discover property or what, you know, if you could do that, you know, at your workstation.
Well,
seem
then
like
you'd have to,
It's a lot clearer. I mean,
yeah, but
the first thing to notice.
if you were thinking of not having to go out and drive,
Well,
then you would have to have that done every
Year.
year
6 months.
you know,
or 6 months. Because they are not gonna call and tell you, I know we got the zoning, and that's gonna be a long time until that comes in play. Because last year we had 2 zoning permits. I know it started in September, but I think we had 250 new, probably ag buildings.
So I guess, I know there are questions that you need to ask, but you also need to determine how important it is, and do you want to make a financial effort from your office or your department to get the updated law? So those are
Sure,
things you need to
yes.
think about.
If I remember right, I think I ended up paying for all the pictures on the last one.
And for that, we're
You made a
eternally grateful.
contribution.
After the fact.
You can have another cup of coffee.
I don't drink coffee.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Well, I mean, if we determine that this is something that we really want to do, and the different departments can agree to help do it, you have to sort that out.
But we do have a tradition started here.
Bad tradition, and always have to carry on with a bad tradition, you know, sometimes you can break that. Be like Chuck's got money.
you know, one
Yeah,
thing.
but I want to tap into that.
Oh, that's good for you.
Is a lot of people don't, you know, neighborhoods used to know everybody in their neighborhood, town, and the country, and that's something that's really changed.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, like for ambulance or emergency or the sheriff's department, and, you know, I think it's something we need to take a look at. But I think, like a lot of things we do, I think it'd be really helpful for us to talk to our counterparts